Something you don't fully know yet. And the story that was told about you, it wasn't the whole truth. There are layers to this, hidden ones, and you're only seeing the surface right now. Last night, two brothers were drinking. One of them is yours. And the other, the one you've given your heart to. He spoke. Words came out that weren't meant for anyone else's ears. Words about a house. About a face. And before the night ended, something cracked wide open. You can feel it, can't you? That strange tension that's been clinging to the air around you since this morning. Like the universe paused. Like something shifted but you don't know what. That feeling, it's real. It's tied to what was whispered across that table, under dim lights and clinking glasses. But before you judge anything, before you feel the sting of those words, you need to hear something first. The brother wasn't angry. He wasn't cruel. That's the part no one is telling you. He was afraid. Yes. Afraid. Because when he looked at your house, he didn't see walls and windows. He saw everything that your love has built. He saw the life you've created with his sibling. And it terrified him. Not because it's ugly, no. That's the twist. He said the words he said because your world is so beautiful, it made him feel small. But then, something else was said. Something about your face. And this is where it gets complicated. Because what he saw in your face wasn't what he expected. He wasn't judging your features. He wasn't critiquing you. He was looking for a reflection. A sign. A clue. What did he see? The answer might shake you. But the full truth hasn't arrived yet. You'll understand soon. Here's what you need to know right now. He told your brother that your house doesn't look like a home. He said it looks like a sanctuary. Like a place where wounds heal and people change. And then he said something that stung. He said, how does someone like them hold a space like that? Maybe you feel the weight of that sentence. Maybe you've already started imagining all the things it could mean. But pause. Don't let the wound close yet. There's another layer. Because after he said that, he looked away. And your brother saw something break inside him. Something that had nothing to do with jealousy. Something deeper. Something rooted in a night from long ago, before you ever entered the picture. Stay with me. The next part is the hardest. Because he didn't stop at your house. He turned to your brother and said, have you ever looked at their face, and felt like you were seeing a future you don't deserve? He wasn't insulting you. He was confessing. He was saying that your face, the one you look at in the mirror every morning, has become the symbol of everything he failed to become. And in that moment, drunk and honest and raw, he wasn't attacking you. He was unmasking himself. But that's not all. Your brother didn't defend you. Not at first. He sat there. Quiet. And when he finally spoke, he said something that changed everything. He told his sibling, I know. I see it too. That's why I try so hard. Wait. What does that mean? Let that settle. Two brothers. One night. And somehow, you were the center of it. Not because of something you did. Not because of something you lack. But because of something you carry without even knowing it. One more layer. The conversation shifted. The brother, the one who said all those things, he started to cry. And your brother, your partner, the one who loves you, he reached over and held his hand. And he said, it's not about deserving. It's about receiving. Do you understand what they were talking about? They weren't talking about your house. They weren't talking about your face. They were talking about a love so present that it exposed every hidden fear in both of them. And you were the one bringing it to life. But now here's the question you've been waiting for. What did your partner say about you? Not about the house. Not about the face. About you. And why hasn't he told you yet? That part is the most important. And it's still hidden. It's locked in a moment that hasn't been shared. And something tells me you're about to hear it soon, maybe today, maybe tonight. Because the truth wants to be known. Before you leave this moment, consider this. What if the words spoken about your home and your face were not the end of a story, but the beginning of something new? What if those words were the key to a door you didn't even know was closed? One final piece. The brother, the one who spoke, he's going to reach out to you. Not with an apology. But with a question. A question that will take you back to that night. And when he asks it, you'll finally understand. But that's for tomorrow. For now, sit with this. Your house is sacred. Your face is holy. Not because of what the world sees, but because of what they saw in it when they were vulnerable enough to speak the truth. And the truth? It's still unfolding. Stay here. Stay present. The biggest revelation hasn't come yet. But it's close. You will feel it soon. The silence after those words, that's where the real story lives. Because when your brother held his hand and said those words about receiving, something shifted in the room. The air changed. The weight of every unspoken thing between them finally had a name. And then your partner did something unexpected. He pulled his hand back. He stood up from the table, walked to the window, and stared out into the night. Your brother watched him. Waiting. And your partner, he spoke again. But this time, his voice was different. Softer. Almost like he was talking to himself. He said, "Every morning I wake up next to them, and I still don't know how I got here." Let that sink in. He wasn't complaining. He wasn't doubting. He was confessing something far more revealing. He was telling his brother that your presence in his life still feels like a miracle he hasn't fully accepted. But then came the words that cut the deepest. Your brother asked him, "So why do you pull away sometimes? Why do you go quiet?" And your partner didn't answer. He just stood there. Silent. Watching the streetlights flicker. And in that silence, your brother understood something he hadn't seen before. Your partner is afraid of being found out. Not of being caught cheating or lying. No. Something deeper. Something that goes all the way back to who he was before you met him. Before your house became his home. Before your face became the first thing he sees every morning. He's afraid that one day, you'll finally see him the way he sees himself. And that's what the brother saw last night. That's what made him speak so strangely about your house and your face. He wasn't criticizing you at all. He was trying to understand how someone with so much light could choose someone who still feels so broken. But here's the part your brother didn't tell you yet. After your partner stopped talking, your brother leaned forward and asked him one final question. A question that hasn't left my mind since I heard it. He asked, if they knew everything, every mistake, every secret, every doubt you've ever had, would they still look at you the same way? Your partner didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He said, I don't think they've ever really seen me. Now that's not true. You know it's not true. You've seen him in ways no one else has. But something in him believes that you only see the version he's built for you. The polished version. The one that helps around the house, the one that makes you laugh, the one that shows up. But the version that wakes up at 3 a.m. and stares at the ceiling? The version that still carries old wounds from people who came before you? That version, he's hidden. And last night, your brother almost pulled him out into the open. But he didn't. He stopped. Because he realized something. Maybe he wasn't supposed to. Maybe that conversation was never for him. Maybe it was always meant to reach you another way. And now it has. So here you are. Sitting with all of this. Wondering what to do with it. Should you confront him? Should you ask him what he said? Should you bring up the house and the face and the strange confession that came out under the influence of wine and old memories? Perhaps you already know the answer. Not yet. Not because you're afraid. But because something bigger is waiting. Something that will make all of this make sense. Something that will show you that the conversation between those two brothers was just the beginning. One more layer before we move on. There was a third person at that table. Someone your partner didn't mention. Someone your brother almost forgot. A friend who showed up late. A friend who sat down and quietly listened to everything. And that friend? They took a picture. Not of anyone's face. Not of the drinks. They took a picture of your partner's hand. The one he pulled back from your brother. The one that was trembling. They don't know why they did it. But they kept it. And they sent it to someone last night. That picture is still out there. Floating. Waiting. And when you see it, you'll understand something that hasn't been said out loud yet. You'll see what fear looks like when it's trying to hide. But that's not the final truth. The final truth is still behind a door that hasn't opened. A door that your partner is going to open himself. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. But soon. Because what he said to his brother, it wasn't the whole story. He left out the most important part. And when he finally tells you what he left out, your heart will break. Not from sadness. From recognition. Because you'll realize that the person you love has been carrying something you were never meant to carry with him. And he's been doing it alone. For a very long time. Stay with this feeling for a moment. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to figure it out. Just let it rest in your chest. Let it sit. Because this is where the real shift happens. Not in knowing. But in allowing. Before we end this part, I want you to ask yourself something. If you could go back to that table last night and sit between them, what would you say? Not to defend yourself. Not to ask for clarity. What would you say to the version of him that was trembling in the dark? That question has power. And the answer will come. Not from me. From you. One more piece of this story remains hidden. And it involves a single word your partner whispered when your brother was about to leave. A word that hasn't been shared with anyone yet. Not even with you. But you'll hear it soon. And when you do, everything changes. The night didn't end at the table. After your brother stood up to leave, after your partner turned back from the window, something else happened. Something that wasn't planned. Something that changed the shape of everything that came before it. Your partner followed your brother outside. He stopped him on the sidewalk. The street was empty. The only light came from a single porch lamp across the road. And in that quiet, your partner said the word. Just one word. But it landed like a stone in still water. He said, "Stay." Not stay for another drink. Not stay to keep talking. Stay because he wasn't ready to be alone. Stay because the silence of the house waiting for him, your house, felt heavier than it ever had before. Your brother looked at him. And he saw something he hadn't seen in years. He saw the younger version of his sibling. The one who used to crawl into his bed during thunderstorms. The one who was terrified of being left behind. That version was standing right there, fully grown, but still trembling inside. And your brother, he stayed. They sat on the front steps of your house. Not talking. Just breathing. Just being. And after a long while, your partner spoke again. He said, "You know what I'm most afraid of?" Your brother waited. "I'm afraid that one day they'll realize they don't need me. And they'll just leave." That's the fear he carries. Not that you'll find someone better. Not that you'll fall out of love. He's afraid that you'll discover your own strength is enough. That you'll outgrow him. That your house will still be beautiful without him in it. That your face will still shine without his reflection in your eyes. He's afraid of becoming optional. And that fear? It showed up last night in ways he couldn't control. That's why he talked about your house like it was something he didn't deserve. That's why he looked at your face like it was a door he wasn't sure he had the right to open. He doesn't feel worthy of the life you've given him. But here's the part no one is saying. Your brother didn't reassure him. He didn't say, they'll never leave. He didn't say, you're being silly. Instead, your brother looked at him and said, I know. I'm afraid of the same thing with my own partner. We all are. That's the secret no one tells you. And then he said something else. Something that changed the entire meaning of the night. He said, but here's the truth I've learned. The people who are afraid of being left. They're the ones who stay the longest. They don't leave because they know how much it hurts to be on the other side. And maybe that's not weakness. Maybe that's the reason love survives. Your partner didn't respond. He just nodded. And for the first time all night, his shoulders dropped. The tension in his jaw softened. Something in him released. But that release came with a cost. Because in that moment of honesty, something else surfaced. Something darker. Something he had been hiding even from himself. And he said it out loud. He said, I lied to them. Once. A long time ago. Before we were serious. And I've never told them. He didn't say what the lie was. Your brother didn't ask. But the words hung in the air like smoke. And they still haven't cleared. Now you're wondering, aren't you? What was the lie? Was it about someone else? Was it about money? Was it about something that happened before you even met? Maybe you already know. Maybe you felt it. A small inconsistency. A moment that never quite added up. Something you brushed aside because it was easier to trust than to question. That's the thing about love. It makes us good at ignoring what we don't want to see. But last night, that lie came up. And it's still floating in the space between his heart and yours. Waiting for the right moment to land. One more piece. Your partner asked your brother something as the night finally ended. He asked, do you think I should tell them? Your brother didn't answer right away. He stood up. Brushed off his pants. And then he said something that has been echoing ever since. He said, that's not my question to answer. That's between you and the person whose face you look at every morning. The one whose house you come home to. The one who has never made you feel like you had to earn their love. He said it because he already knew the answer. He knew you'd still love him. He knew you'd forgive him. He knew the lie wasn't big enough to break what you've built. But he also knew something else. That if your partner doesn't tell you himself, the truth will find its own way out. And when it does, it won't be gentle. So here you are. Standing at the edge of this revelation. Knowing that something happened. Knowing that something was said. Knowing that something is still waiting to be uncovered. And all of it centers on a single person. Someone who loves you more than they know how to show. Someone who is more afraid of losing you than they are of anything else. Someone who is about to make a choice. He doesn't know it yet. But that choice is coming. It's already in motion. And when it arrives, it will reshape everything. You'll feel it before you see it. A shift in the air. A change in the way he looks at you. A pause in the middle of an ordinary moment. And in that pause, you'll both know. The truth is ready. One final layer before we stop here. Your brother didn't tell anyone what he heard. He kept it all inside. But this morning, when he woke up, he did something he hasn't done in years. He wrote a letter. Not to you. Not to your partner. To himself. And in that letter, he wrote 3 sentences. 3 sentences that will make their way to you in time. The first one is, they are stronger than they look. The second one is, their house is not a cage. It's a shelter. The third one is, and the face I saw last night, it was the face of someone who has been loving without limits since the very first day. That's the truth he saw. That's the truth that's still coming. So stay here. Stay open. Stay grounded. Because the biggest piece of this story hasn't touched your ears yet. And when it does, you'll finally understand why last night had to happen. One more breath. One more moment. And then, everything begins again.
The letter your brother wrote to himself, it found its way out. Not through him. Through someone else. A mutual friend who saw it on his desk, read a few lines, and couldn't unsee what was written there. That friend called your partner this morning. Not to stir trouble. But to warn him. To tell him that the truth was no longer contained. And your partner? He didn't panic. He didn't get angry. He sat in silence for a long time. And then he said something that will echo through every moment that follows. He said, I was already planning to tell them tonight. That's right. Tonight. The same night that followed a night of secrets and confessions. The same night that followed a conversation you weren't there for. The same night that brought you to this very moment, reading these words, feeling your heart beat a little faster. He's going to tell you. Not because he was caught. Not because the letter forced his hand. But because he finally realized that the truth is the only thing that can save what he's so afraid of losing. But here's what he doesn't know yet. You already know something too. Something he didn't say last night. Something your brother didn't overhear. Something that happened even earlier, before the drinks, before the table, before any of it. You found a receipt. Not just any receipt. A receipt from a place he told you he'd never been. A place that belongs to someone from his past. Someone he swore was no longer in his life. You found it 3 days ago. And you've been carrying it ever since. You haven't confronted him. You haven't asked. You've just held it. Folded it. Hidden it in the back of a drawer. And you've been waiting, not for the right moment, but for the right answer. What if the answer he gives you tonight is the same answer you've been too afraid to ask for? What if the lie he mentioned to your brother was never about what you think? Here's the piece that changes everything. The receipt wasn't from a hotel. It wasn't from a restaurant. It wasn't from a place of romance or betrayal. It was from a doctor's office. A therapist. A specialist who works with people who carry invisible wounds. The kind of wounds that don't heal on their own. The kind that make you push away the people you love most. He's been going for months. Without telling you. Without telling anyone. Because he didn't want you to see him as broken. He didn't want you to think he couldn't be the person you deserve. But that receipt, it was the truth he's been hiding. Not infidelity. Not deception. Shame. Deep, quiet shame that he's been carrying since long before you met him. And last night, when he sat on the steps with your brother, he wasn't afraid of you leaving him for someone else. He was afraid of you leaving him for something else. Something inside him. Something he's been fighting alone. One more layer before we reach the edge of tonight. Your brother found out about the therapist the same way you did. Through the friend who saw the letter. And when he called your partner this morning, he didn't ask about the lie. He asked about the healing. He said, "Are you getting better?" Your partner paused. And then he said, "I think I am. But I don't know if I'll ever be what they need." Your brother didn't answer that. He didn't need to. Because he knew the truth. The truth that you've always known. The truth that has never changed, not once, through all the silence and distance and fear. You don't need him to be perfect. You just need him to be real. That's what you've been waiting for. Not a confession. Not an apology. Just presence. Just honesty. Just the person you fell in love with. Not the polished version, not the brave version, the real one. And tonight, he's going to give you that. But before he does, there's one more thing you need to know. Something he told his therapist in their last session. Something that was written in a note that wasn't meant for anyone else. He said, "I love them more than I love myself." And I think that's the problem. Because loving you that much, without loving himself, has made him terrified. Terrified that you'll see what he sees. Terrified that you'll agree with the voice inside his head that tells him he's not enough. But that voice? It's wrong. And you've always known it. So tonight, when he sits you down, when he takes your hands, when he looks at your face, the same face his brother spoke about, he won't be confessing a crime. He'll be offering you a door. A door into the part of him he's kept locked for years. And the question isn't whether you'll forgive him. The question is whether you'll walk through that door with him. Because that's what love does. It doesn't wait for someone to be fixed. It walks beside them while they heal. One final piece before the night comes. Your brother didn't just write that letter for himself. He wrote it because he knew that one day, maybe today, maybe soon, you'd need to hear something that couldn't be spoken out loud. And the last line of that letter? It's the only thing you need to remember. It says, they've been waiting their whole life for someone who would stay. And you've been doing that every single day without even knowing it. That's the truth. The truth that the brother saw in your face. The truth that lives inside your house. The truth that your partner is finally ready to meet. Tonight is not the end. It's the beginning of the beginning. Stay here. Stay open. Stay ready. Because when he speaks, you'll finally understand why all of this had to unfold exactly the way it did. One more breath. One more moment. And then, everything becomes real.